All right. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our panelists and invite them to turn on their cameras and unmute themselves so we can get this special workshop session going on affordability and accessibility. All right. Thank you, Megan. And great. So the Save Ancient Studies Alliance is a nonprofit, as you all know, that is committed to making the ancient world more accessible and more readily available to the public at large, right? We want people who attend university to have additional resources to help them study. We want independent scholars to be able to keep doing what they're doing. We also want regular folks out there to be able to read about ancient Greece, ancient Mesopotamia, ancient China, wherever their interests lie, right? We believe that anyone should be able to do this on a regular basis with the least amount of restrictions possible. Okay, so that is part of the inspiration behind this particular workshop today. So my name is John Haberstroh. I am a volunteer with SASA. I am the leader of the Access team. So part of my job is to carry out programs and initiatives within SASA to make ancient studies more accessible to the public at large. Today's theme will be on affordability. So we could have sliced accessibility a dozen different ways. And so we chose this time to go with affordability. It seemed like a timely thing to do given inflation, given the increasing costs of higher education, not just in the US, but around the world. So this is a particular target that we are going to take on today. So I'm also an assistant professor in residence at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, where I teach ancient world history. And I'm very excited to be your moderator today. We have a few panelists here who are going to well, let me give you a roadmap for where we're going. Okay, so I'll briefly introduce our panelists, and I will give them some time here to kind of introduce to the public here some of the things, some of the initiatives and programs that they do in their respective organizations to make ancient studies accessible on the affordability front. So after that, we'll have a brief Q&A that I will moderate among the panelists. Upon the conclusion of that discussion, we will field questions from the public. So if you're on Twitter, if you are on YouTube, if you are with some of our partner streaming groups, you can ask questions through their particular streaming services, and we will kind of collect them all here. And I will do my best to keep track. Hopefully the inbox doesn't become unmanageable for me. So we will have some fun today and engage in this important discussion on affordability. So I will just briefly introduce our panelists now, and I will allow them to kind of go into more details about themselves if they wish. So we have three different organizations represented here today. So the first is the American School of Classical Studies, and we have Dr. Mark Lawall and Dr. Alicia Dissinger, who are here to talk about the exciting things at the American School of Classical Studies. We have Manolis Pankalos representing Isegoria Publishing, and we have Jan van der Crabben of the World History Encyclopedia. So I don't know if we should have drew straws out of a hat or something to decide who would go first today, but maybe I'll just toss it to our friends at the American School to kind of kick things off. So feel free to unmute yourselves and tell us who you are and tell us more about the American School.
Okay, thanks, John. So as John said, I'm Mark Lawall. I'm chair of the managing committee of the school. The school is a private nonprofit founded in 1881. And ever since that time, we've been a consortium of cooperating institutions, and there are now just around 200 of those. And so the managing committee is the overall policy making body of that organization. So we have about 400 members of this committee, and I chair this this unwieldy mass. So I have Alicia and I have a PowerPoint that we're going to show really quickly, just to kind of introduce you to the school and to our offerings in particular, of course, with a focus on issues of affordability and access. So as I said, the school was founded in 1881. Its goal was to give Americans in particular access to study in Greece, and of course to carry out archaeological excavation in Greece. This has always been a matter of getting a permit through a representative foreign school. So the American school carries out that service for Americans, and also for a long time it was the representative for Canada as well, though now Canada has its own institute. I just show you here some early minutes of the school's trustees and the early version of our reading room that is now the director's living room. Ever since its founding, the school has offered educational opportunities for graduate students and faculty. I show you here a 1933 field trip that the students took. Basically, the school, in terms of affordability, the school covers the education, research resources, and all needs for 1, 2, or even 3 years, or sometimes more, of a graduate student's education. And our libraries, of which there are 2 major ones, the Gennadius and the Blagan, basically fill the needs for books, journal subscriptions, everything that students might need during their time in Athens. And this basically, if you think about it, that means that the home institutions are not covering the costs of those students' education, saving the money for other activities. We also house a state-of-the-art archaeological laboratory, the Wiener Laboratory, and again, we're providing almost free access for scientific work, including including most recently DNA analysis, but all kinds of different equipment is there and available for students and faculty use. We do carry out a number of different public outreach initiatives. We are active on social media, including Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, as well as Facebook and other platforms. Our website has an archive of our past video lectures, as well as we also live stream lectures on a regular basis now. One of our newest facilities is the Makrianis exhibition wing, which provides events in Athens itself, and many of those have now also been published and the subject of various online exhibitions as well. Perhaps most exciting, we have a K-12 program, thanks to the Steinmetz Family Foundation, that's been active at Corinth for quite a while now. It provides both in-person and online programming for students all around the world. And we're now expanding that to the Athenian Agora and the Makrianis exhibition wing as well. So we're basically doubling our capacity as far as K-12 education, and that also includes general public outreach. We have vast online resources, and these are only increasing. If you're interested in learning about recent publications, our library's online catalog can be sorted according to date of acquisition, and so you can get a quick sense of what's recently come out. But then we also have all kinds of scanned excavation records. What you're seeing here is from the mid-1930s excavations of the north slope of the Acropolis, and this is a female head that was found in a well there. But you can also track through the Agora excavations from literally day one. As you see, this notebook page is day one. They found a block. But you can also, from the school's archives, we have scanned vast amounts of Heinrich Schliemann's diaries. And you see here when he began work at Troy, you can see some of his drawings of finds from Troy. You can also see when he visited Egypt and decided to try his hand at Arabic, which he did pretty well at. Interestingly here, the interlinear translations are in Greek, French, and English. So he's like just, anyways. Our publication office, as many of you probably know, produces the quarterly journal Hesperia. We also produce the final report series for American school projects at the Athenian Agora and Ancient Corinth. We also have various series devoted to affiliated excavations. In terms of costs to authors, authors writing for the Agora or Corinth or other school excavations are not charged any subvention. Authors connected with affiliated projects, the affiliated projects are expected to cover some costs in terms of subventions. We also, though, in terms of disseminating this material, a lot of it is online now through both JSTOR as an archival source and Project Muse for latest editions. We also have a number of things available free of charge online on our website. We also engage, in terms of a global audience, we also engage in an exchange program where we send hard copies of our materials out to libraries worldwide and publishers worldwide in exchange for their materials as well. So basically it's a kind of free exchange of material that distributes our books all around the world. We are also, of course, a place where you can carry out independent research. We have the library facilities in Athens for visiting scholars from the US. If you become a member of the school, we can help you in securing permissions for site visits, for photography, for object study in museums. In fact, we are your clearinghouse for these kind of permissions. For scholars in Athens, you're welcome to come to the school, to the library anytime and get a visiting reader card. It does require a letter of reference from your superiors, but this is publicly available. The Gennadius Library, which covers basically Byzantium through the modern day, is a shared resource of the Greek government and the American school, and it's freely available to anyone at any time during opening hours. So that gives you a quick overview of what the school is all about, and I'll turn things over to Alicia now to talk about our programs.
Hi, I'm Alicia Dissinger, so I'm the programs administrator. So if you're thinking of coming to the school on one of our programs, fellowships, that's me. So I'm happy to answer questions about our programs, what we do, anything like that. So what we have on the screen here, I'll talk shortly about our summer programs. We have a couple things, and there is funding available. There's funding available through us and also classical associations, full and partial, to make it more affordable. We've got a 6-week summer session. And this is really an intensive introduction to Greece from antiquity through the modern period. Anybody's eligible, graduate students, if you have a PhD, K through 12 educators, independent scholars, please apply. The 6 weeks is very long. So if you're looking for something shorter, we do have 2 18-day programs. The themes, they change each year, different directors. So this coming summer, the themes are warriors, sailors, traders, and pirates, Aegean islands through the ages, Alexander to Actium, the archaeology of Hellenistic Greece. And if you lean more towards science, we've got our archaeological science summer programs. They're each 1 week and they take place in the summer. Thank you. So the big thing we do with our academic program, this goes all through the year, 9 months. This is kind of what Mark was saying. If you want to come to us instead of being at your home institution, come to us. We do have full scholarships available. So if we accept you on one of our 12 scholarships, it's all paid for. You get a stipend as well. And you can see there just a little blurb about what exactly the program is. And the students who apply to it's usually ABD phase, kind of later in your graduate career, but it's a comprehensive training program to immerse students in Greek history of all periods. So Mark, if you want to go to the next slide. This is kind of a brief overview of where we go on the program. We go all over Greece. We go everywhere. And this is directed by our Mellon professor. There's 5 trips. We go north, northeast Greece, western Greece, Crete, central Greece, the Corinthian, the Argolid. In our winter term, we do excursions around the area. There are seminars led by our Mellon professor, and we have special scholars we bring in called our Whitehead scholars, and they'll give lectures as well. And if you are a PhD holder, you can apply for our Whitehead positions. So we've got a lot going on. And to help support you, we have about over 25 fellowships available. So we're talking about making things more accessible through offsetting cost. We've got over 25 fellowships, from small partial amounts, full academic year, that's really aimed at graduate students, if you hold a PhD, and even independent scholars. So feel free to go through the website, check out our eligibility, what some of the topics are. One of our newer fellowships that's really fantastic, it's our Scarborough Fellowship. This supports up to 3 months at the school. You can propose to do basically anything you want. Join our program, independent research. It's open to graduate students, K through 12 teachers, independent scholars, but you do have to reside in the US or Canada. And we're looking for people whose geographic origin, diverse experiences, and socioeconomic background are underrepresented at the school. But there's a very nice stipend of about $1,500 a month. And you get free room and board at Loring Hall. And with this one, we'll actually pay your round trip ticket to and from Greece. Not all of our scholarships do that, but this one does. An example of one of our full academic year program scholarships is the Hirsch Fellowship. That's $11,500 for 9 months, free room and board at Loring Hall. For PhD holders, we've got a few of them as well. Most of them are a little short term. About one of them is our Coatson $2,000 for 2 months at the school. We also have our NEH fellowships back. So if you hold a PhD and you want to use any of our facilities, you can propose to study with us from 3 months, 4 months, 9 months. We'd love to see your application. And this, we get a lot of independent scholars applying for this one. And don't let this scare you that we have so many opportunities, because we have a very high success rate. So in general, it is a high acceptance rate. So for our summer programs, we get about 50 to 60 applicants for 20 spots. So it's about 40 to 33% acceptance rate. Our seminars, again, there's 20 spots, but we get about 30 to 40 applicants. So we're talking about 65, 50% acceptance rate. And again, we have funding through us. There's other places where you can reach out for funding, and that's all on our website. And even our fellowships, they're one fellowship, but we'll get anywhere from 10 people to 25 people applying. So apply, we want to give you our money. So I guess just to sum up, take a look at our website. Mark mentioned we have so much to offer, more than just funding for our programs. There's a lot of online free resources, photos, images, notebooks, excavation material. And again, feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to help with any of this. Mark, I don't know if you have any follow-up words, but.
Oh, no, that's great. Thanks. And thanks again, John.
All right. Thank you so much, both of you. And I should have mentioned this before, but I was a proud regular member myself back in 2017, 2018 at the American School. And if you're a graduate student out there who is a Hellenophile of any variety, the American School is the place to be. It is an unparalleled experience. And they did not pay me to say that. So thank you so much. And we'll circle back for folks who have questions about the American School and all of their different programs and opportunities. And next we'll turn to Isegoria Publishing. We'll turn to our friend and colleague, Manolis Pankalos. Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us all about Isegoria Publishing.
Yeah, hello, everyone. Thank you very much, John, for the introduction. My name is Dr. Manolis Pankalos, and I am editor-in-chief at Isegoria Publishing. We are sorry that we will not have together with us today the other colleague, Dr. Stefanos Apostolou. But I think I will be speaking for both of us for everything that we shall say. So shortly I will be sharing something as well, but it's just the site of Isegoria. So if you bear with me a moment. Isegoria. So Isegoria Publishing, we can start from the basics. We are Isegoria Publishing, but as you can see from our site, we refer to ourselves as Isegoria, because what started as an attempt to make it fair in publishing for early career, especially non-Anglophone scholars, soon became something more than that. And we see ourselves transforming into an educational hub. So if I am to start from the very beginning, it was many years where we had discussions with colleagues, and especially with Stefanos Apostolou, both of us being graduates of ancient history, both of us with PhDs in the United Kingdom, seeing a bit of a disparity in what it is offered in academia, both in terms of positions, but also in terms of opportunities, be them scholarships, be them contracts, be them also publishing. And then I think the kickstart to actually do something more than discussion was the period of COVID, where we established the basics after a very long period of asking colleagues and making a kind of a market research, if you wish, trying to find out what works and what works where, connecting with colleagues throughout the world. So we ended up founding Isegoria, which is a community interest company under British law. That means it is a non-profit organization. So we have three main axes, and I will say the first one is the publication, dissemination, and promotion of research materials. So in our community, we offer open, free, worldwide access to scholarly research produced globally. Okay, to promote the knowledge and free access to peer-reviewed information by a community of scholars, students, institutions, and the involved public. In the second nexus, we provide seminars and workshops, in many ways, knowledge, skill, and research and enhancement seminars to support both teaching and learning. That translates roughly into access on specialized high-quality seminars and workshops for students of all levels in academic institutions, but also outside, and also workshops that deal with continuous personal development, enhancing the abilities and the acquisition of knowledge for a diverse audience. Again, our audience as a community interest company, our community, if you wish, is those students, scholars, researchers, interested members of the public, research institutions, other profit or non-profit institutions, or companies, or even individuals. And then on our third and last point of looking at the world, our perspective is the collaboration and support and organization of cultural or educational projects, be they conferences, exhibitions, presentations, or outreach activities. And our maybe for now magnum opus is the launch of scientific open access digital-only journal, CNICS, the Journal of Classical Studies, which publishes work of scholars for the most part of ancient history, from the very early archaic period to roughly, and we can have a debate about this, to roughly the start of the late antiquity. For us, we set it at around 600 Common Era and the reign of Heraclius. And also its reception. And we include all subfields. We run now with an advisory board of 30 members from 18 countries across the world. Of course, listening just before the colleagues from the American School of Classical Studies, we're a very new organization. We just launched our attempt to make some difference in the academic and non-academic world just in July 2021. So we are nearly, actually, we are just 2 years old 3 days ago. But this doesn't mean that we haven't expanded more from NICs. For example, we run, and you can go on our website and you can see also our projects. We run Greek epigraphy seminars, and we travel twice to Brazil to teach students across 17 universities the introduction of Greek epigraphy, a course that has never been taught in any university in Brazil. And we run it for 2 continuous years, consecutive years, and we will be running it again next year. In our first November, we traveled to Czech Republic to offer a specialized course on memory in the ancient world, and in Mazar University in Brno. And this November, we will be traveling to the Autonomous University of Mexico to offer a seminar, a high-level, now intensive seminar on Greek epigraphy. And this is part of both of our outreach, but also of our perspective on what should be offered out there. So we do this with a minimum cost, either completely free or with a coverage of some of the material needed for running this kind of specialized workshops. And this is a way for us to demonstrate both the gap in some countries or institutions' curricula, but also how we can bend this and make it work for the benefit of both those institutions and their students. Of course, the after-COVID period has really benefited such projects because participation is very easy, online workshops, very low cost, no need for students to travel, especially collaborating with 10 or 17 different universities. It is a strain for any kind of organization, except if it is online. And maybe this could be something, but we also run other things. And in our projects, we have our first books coming up. We have 2 call for papers that were open, and now they are in different stages of production. So the first published books of Isegoria Publishing will be 2 edited volumes. One is organized by colleagues in Brazil and China. The second one by colleagues working in classical and Mediterranean, classical and medieval Mediterranean in the University of Puerto Rico. And you can find the details and the timeline for their publication in our website. And lastly, in a way, we are doing everything we can, as SASA does, as Saving the Ancient Studies Alliance does, to promote the study of the ancient world. And this means, for example, that we participated in panels like that, Classics in Africa, to think of the ways forward of making more relevant to contemporary education the humanities, and specifically ancient studies, in many times, very often, giving a different perspective than the perspective that it is currently the majority perspective. That we feel, both Stefanos and me, that there is a lot of merit and this is something that we can agree on, all of us, I think, a lot of merit in studying the humanities and specifically classical studies. And but the direction, as it seems, especially in the global north, if you wish, seems a bit wrong. There are other initiatives that are worth taking, especially in the global south, be it in South America, be it in Africa, be it currently in China, where I'm now found, where the humanities, maybe with some different agenda indeed, but the humanities gain a lot of pace and are supported as an equal player on the game of education. And this is something that we should all think about and learn from, so that we can maximize our impact to the world. And we also run specific research activities. We just came last April from the conference of Classical Association in Cambridge, where the Isegoria members, a team of 7 panelists, presented its first organized by Isegoria panel. So we're trying to play at many levels, from outreach to publication to actually making research and back to producing this research in an open access, digital, free for all medium, be it the book, be them the books or our journal. One of the last things that I would like to say before handing back to you, John, is that one of the different things we think that we are doing is that we partake in the process of creating knowledge and publishing it with the creators, the authors. We have a kind of complex 2 stages peer review, an internal one that is an editorial one, plus the members of the scientific board, advisory board. And in case that the works are accepted, then it goes to a blind double peer review to experts. So at least 5 or 6 pairs of eyes look at every single thing that we publish. And during that process, we collaborate with the reviewers and with the authors in order to create this kind of collaborative environment where the author provides his or her ideas, okay? The core, the essence of publishing work, whereas we, as editors of language, the reviewers as editors of argument, if you wish, help the author maximize the potential of their idea. So the end project, the end result of this process is many times a bit different from the initial, at least size sometimes and depth, initial contribution, but very much enhanced, while leaving the author with the knowledge that there are specific steps and we're standing by next to him. And we will be publishing now our 3rd issue of PNICS. It should be coming out by the end of this week, where we have been launching book reviews as well, with a bit of a twist. So instead of just doing academic peer reviews, we do that. We offer the possibility to the editors or the authors of the book on review to provide a kind of informal interview where they present ideas about how, or information that is, about how they went into completing this task. It is a milestone for every one of us, right? From start to end, with the pitfalls, things that they may change, and by providing a voice to them, rather than just saying that Manolis Pankalos published so-and-so book in 2023, maybe the authors have a face and a name and a substance behind just that name. This is some of the ways that we have been thinking about Isegoria, not only a publisher, much more as we think. And we open up, and we have been doing that ever since the beginning. We open up the floor to any colleagues, early career or outside academia, mainstream academia that is, who have ideas of things that we have been doing. They have feedback to come and find us, and we're very open in discussing these ideas, brainstorming about what else we can do, and collaborating in projects in the future, because it is a community project. Maybe we have some maybe madness in us to start it, but it only grows by the help of its community. So thank you very much, John.
All right, thank you, Manolis. We appreciate your thoughts and ideas here on the kind of vision of Isegoria. And I'm sure we'll return back to this very shortly with questions from our audience. And we'll turn now to our third panelist participant today, and this is Jan van der Crabben of the World History Encyclopedia. So I'll hand it over to you now.
Hi, thank you very much. Yes, you may have noticed that my name is not on conference program. I was asked to step in. World History Encyclopedia is one of the media partners and longstanding partners of Safe Ancient Studies Alliance. And so I'm happy to step in and present a little short summary here as well. I whacked together a little presentation. And then, I'm happy to talk about affordability and reaching an audience that is interested in ancient studies. So I'm just going to start by sharing my screen here. About us. Sorry, how do I get this in? Okay, there we go. All right, so World History Encyclopedia. As I mentioned, we are a partner of Safe Ancient Studies Alliance, and we are primarily a website found at worldhistory.org. That's what it looks like. I obviously encourage you to visit it. We are a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to engage people with cultural heritage and to improve history education worldwide. So everything we publish is entirely for free, so affordable for the readers. And also we're not an open access publication that charges authors either. So in that sense, also rather affordable. Our motto is history grows the mind. We think it's really important that history has that place and that understanding, because it helps us build our cultural identities. History helps us gain an understanding of the past, mainly to look at the present and to build a better future, but also to have a more open-minded society. And I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, so I think we can just skip this part. We were founded in 2009. We are a nonprofit organization, as I mentioned. We have 12 employees in countries all over the world, and we are largely supported by many, many hundreds of volunteers who write for us and provide us with book reviews and various other things, grab photos, etc. We are probably the most read history publication in the world, with over 40 million readers per year. Now, obviously, this is a website, so that's aimed at the general public. It's not an academic journal in that sense, even though everything that we publish is reviewed carefully by our editorial team to ensure that it is accurate and also engaging for a general public readership. So we work with our authors to make sure it is accessible to the general public. As a result, we are a highly trusted resource. We are recommended by many institutions in the world, schools and universities, and libraries, including Oxford University and the School Library Journal. We also work with other organizations such as Safe Ancient Studies. We also work with UNESCO, and we help obviously promote historical research, discoveries, and any sort of discussions, including this conference, which is being streamed on our social media and YouTube channels. Now, we also sometimes, not this year, but sometimes offer scholarships in combination with UNESCO in relationship to cultural heritage. We hope that next year we can do so again. Now, the way we see ourselves is we are essentially a bridge between the academic world and the public. We're an encyclopedia, which means our readership is intended to be obviously the general public, but we work with academics who provide us with the research and bring it in a format that makes it easy for anybody from a high school age onwards to understand it and understand why it matters as well, and basically generate interest in research in the academic world and in ancient studies in particular. Now, we've published over 3,700 articles and tens of thousands of images. And that is only possible because of this vast community of over 700 contributors who have worked with us, who have shared their knowledge with us, the majority of whom are somehow scholars, either with a university or of an independent type. Now, all the articles that we translate publish get translated as well. So we have so far translated about 5,000 articles in over 40 languages, because we believe that open access is only truly open if people can read it in their own language. That is obviously a fast undertaking, and we have a large legion of volunteer translators who help us with this, but it's progressing really quickly, and the figure there is actually outdated. It's about 30% of our readership is now in languages other than English. We also publish book reviews, which is probably of interest to some of the scholars here who have recently published something, or book publishers who might be in the audience. So we love receiving reviews from our partners, from our reviewers. We have a network of reviewers who work for us, and these book reviews then obviously get sent out on all our channels, on our newsletter, on social media, and very often as well we interview the authors on our YouTube channel, which is similar to what the previous speaker said, what they are doing. So I think we are kind of on the same track here of basically wanting to help authors and researchers spread the word about what they have been doing to the general public. Now, all of this obviously goes out on our social media and our newsletter. So anything we publish generally tends to end up with a very large audience of tens of thousands of readers within a very short period of time. And to us, that is actually kind of how we see the open part of open access. It's not only should it be free, but also it needs to be found, it needs to be read. It doesn't help anybody if it's free but published somewhere where nobody is going to read it. So that's where we want to help, and what we want to do to work with our partners and provide that exposure to research and to work. Finally, we also work with educators. We align with the curricula around the world and publish educational materials. So a lot of the materials that we have on our website and articles and videos actually get used in schools all over the world, primarily in the English-speaking world, but increasingly so in other countries. So there we go. Kind of rushed through this, but I thought it's better to talk about this and think about what does affordability mean to us in the ancient studies and history sense in general. And I think from my perspective, it needs to be affordable, not just on a monetary level, but also on a level of how much time does it take to invest in creating these resources, and what kind of outcome do we get in terms of who is reached with it. So I'm happy to open up the discussion here, hand it back to you, John, and leave it at that. But obviously, I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Jan. All right. And thank you again to all of our panelists. And so, yeah, Jan kind of set the stage very well there. So we're going to kind of open our discussion up a little bit more broadly now, kind of beyond your individual organizations, to get us talking about this kind of very complex idea of affordability. This is not something that you or I or probably anyone in this Zoom call right here could solve on our own, right? This is a systemic kind of financial issue, right? And everything is always just so much more complicated than it needs to be. That's how our kind of world works a little bit. So again, I'm coming at this from a kind of nonprofit perspective, from a higher education perspective, right? So with my students that I see every day, you know, they're taking out student loans. They're having to justify to their parents, you know, oh, like, well, you should be a mechanical engineer because they make lots of money, even though the evidence of that is, you know, quite selective, right? Plenty of English majors can, you know, make just as much money as an engineer, right? But right, that's the narrative, right? That's the narrative that is being pushed in the United States, and I'm sure elsewhere as well. So we'll proceed with these kind of questions that I've kind of thrown together and been thinking about over the past few months, but I have some general questions to start things off. Then I'd like to kind of turn a little bit to talking about independent scholars specifically as a group and the general public. And then if there's time, we'll talk also about graduate education and funding opportunities there. So I'll just pose these questions to anyone and feel free to kind of take it up if you are inspired. But what do you find to be the greatest obstacle in increasing accessibility through your specific organizations?
Well, I guess I can jump in since we're often, I mean, I think in a lot of ways, the American school is kind of seen as almost like a gatekeeper in some ways, for better or worse. And because we are in Greece, it's of course harder for people simply to, you know, go and access the material. As I say, I think we've done a pretty good job of putting materials out online. And actually, as others have mentioned, you know, COVID was a huge push for us to do that. We'd been broadcasting, you know, lectures earlier, but with COVID, we really doubled down on that. So I think it is, yeah, one of the things that we have probably the hardest time is convincing faculty members to push their students to come to Greece, to spend that time away from their home programs. It's seen as sort of a drain on time. But I would say it's actually in a way the reverse, right? Because as I said before, we're essentially saving time and money for the institutions back home because they can then turn their attention to the students who are still there. And there's really no, as John, you mentioned, I mean, there's no other way to really get this kind of exposure to the Greek world without doing that. And yet, but it has been, you know, there are certainly faculty members who will say, you know, don't do it. You know, you have to finish your dissertation in 3 years. This will delay you. It's therefore bad. But I would argue there's, you know, as I've told so many students, there's no time in your life you're going to have more time to just read and think and muse, you know, and visit sites and all this kind of stuff. I mean, once you're in any job, you're no longer going to have that time at all. You know, whether it's in academia or doing other things, I mean, you're just not going to have that time. So, you know, like, why not?
So what other obstacles are there? Because you know, I think as our presenters have mentioned before, right? It's not always just simply money. I don't have enough cash to do something, right? Like there's other implications that affordability kind of entail. So I don't know, you know, Manolis, maybe you can speak to right, the fact that you don't charge authors to publish with your, like, how does your organization kind of navigate the intricacies of, you know, how are you all funded? Is it fundraising? Is it private donations? Is it university sponsorships? How does that work in your world?
Yeah, thank you, John. I was thinking about that because when we speak about accessibility, we also have to think about accessibility to our resources and affordability for our resources. And of course, we do not have the size of any of the other organizations here today. We are a very small team that started something from their own time and financial means. So we started very, very, very small in some ways, thinking that we can offer the world some of the time that we offer to colleagues anyway by doing a bit more and for them gaining from it. So we all peer review articles or other works, we all write reports. This kind of small thinking kickstarted our idea about Isegoria. And then, of course, when you grow a bit, or even before that, you realize that accessibility and affordability are key factors in any undertaking. And I said earlier that we started by a very long market research in a way, where we created a questionnaire of 60 questions, Google form, asking everything, and also asking about APCs, which for us are ridiculously high. We know what it entails, and we know some of the pitfalls, so maybe it's not the time for this kind of discussion, but charging $2,000 US, euros, pounds for an article for open access, you name it as you wish, green, gold, diamond, or whatever, it is something that it is not affordable or accessible to anyone. Even if he or she is a professor, they are professors with 30 years of career, how many articles can they publish in this way? And in this kind of discussion, of course, we can involve this kind of huge funding bodies that offer an extra pot of money for researcher to tap on if they wish to publish in open access. And of course, this is something that we are both accepting in Isegoria. Scholars and researchers who have access in this kind of funding are welcome to bring it to us, and we will put it in good use. As a non-for-profit organization, we do not have access, and we chose that. We do not have access in any funds of Isegoria. And that means that all money that go to Isegoria go back on publishing and continuing our work. But that also means that if you are very new in the game, some people may think about impact. Of course, some other people may think about rates, or we're very new. We have to kind of provide something to our audience so that we can be trusted. So from very early on, we decided that we have a ceiling of our own means, which we will use entirely in producing completely free from all aspects from anyone works. And we are in this path right now. And this has already come with some response from the audience, where people has been giving some funds on their own as donations, which are used. And some other times from people who wish to use our, for example, editorial skills and pay for them with money that are transferred directly to Isegoria. So we are still building the way of how we can collaborate with the community. And then the most common route for this kind of aspirations is, of course, collaborations with institutions. And indeed, we have been supported by University of Groningen, where I was holding until recently a position with an open access fund. And we have been also in collaboration with the National Documentation Center at Greece, where they provide our platforms through Public Knowledge Project. So we have some mixture of actual financial means and some in kind. And the way forward for accessibility is really to understand that first, a lot of work is being done by people and it's unpaid, okay? And what we offer to those people is, if they do this kind of work for us, they get some recognition for all of it, okay? But also in terms of working backwards to that, maybe some people will feel like we are doing something that is good, and they will support whoever they are, from students to higher strata, will support this offer. We also have submitted very big funding applications to cover running costs, which we have. This, I think, leads back to a key fact. I said that we have collaborations and we have discussions with colleagues across the world. And, you know, to charge, for example, even $1 for a specialized course in Hellenistic history, students or colleagues, that is, from Africa or South America, is a day and night. And it's something that we have to think about whatever we do. So we choose, and we will be doing, and we are doing it already, not to charge anything those colleagues who do not have any access to funds. So at an event, if the idea is there, this is a collaboration for a course, a specialized workshop, for a conference, or this is an idea for a specific publication, a book or an article, we will undertake to publish it no matter what. Of course, we cannot do it for all of them, so there is a selection, but we stand by the author that select us, that trust us, that we will take their work and publish it no matter the cost.
Great, great. And Jan, I wanted to turn to you now, because you know, a lot of times when, and I'm sure many of our viewers today have visited the World History Encyclopedia, and every once in a while you get that yellow banner that says, you know, now's the time to help make the World History Encyclopedia work, right? So that type of crowdfunding aspect is a different funding model. So I don't know if you want to speak briefly about that, and how, you know, what implications that may have for how the World History Encyclopedia makes its free content.
Yeah, I mean, for us, in part of our mission is that absolutely everything we publish is going to be free. We will never charge access for absolutely anything that we publish. So that's kind of the baseline. And it's true that, yes, that needs to be paid for. Nothing is free, right? So we basically have three primary funding channels. The first one is advertising on our website, which generates about half of the money that we generate to run our publication. And that's something that is very seasonal, unfortunately. So in summer, right now, it's really low. And on top of that, at the moment, it's also very much tied to the economy. So we're not making money at the moment because the economy is down, advertising is down. We're kind of climbing back up, but it was a tough first half of the year. Then the other thing that we do is we have a membership subscription. So these are primarily people who love what we do. They want to support what we do. It's essentially like a recurring donation. And to say thank you, we take away ads from the website and give them access to like a members magazine, like, you know, many museums do, like Friends of the British Museum or whatever, that sort of stuff. And then finally, we have these donations drives that you alluded to. And we run one big donation drive per year to basically pay for our servers and all the web services that we have that we require to run the operation. Now, yeah, that's something we do once a year. And unfortunately, that's less reliable than, say, a membership, something recurring that you can sort of count on, because, again, it really depends on the global financial situation, on how willing people are to donate. So in 2020, after everybody had received their checks from the government in the United States, we completed our fundraiser in no time. This year, we did not complete our fundraiser. I think we reached about 77% or something like that before we shut it down. So there are problems with each of these models. advertising and donations are both very much driven by the economy, unfortunately. Whereas memberships is more reliable. So I think if anybody wanted to do something similar to us, having a model where people can pay money on a regular basis, that's the most reliable source of revenue. But it takes a long time to grow it, of course. And for us, it's something that is entirely voluntary. People can choose to do it. There's no obligation. As I said, everything we publish is free, but that's kind of how we run it. And we don't take money from our authors. We have some of our authors who donate to us as well, because they just support us and think what we're doing is great. But yeah, it's free for everybody.
Hello, I am Veli Alberkallio, from Vice President from the Sea Research Society, and I just would like to say that we are working more on the policy side, and one of the things that I would like to see the archaeological community working harder is this thing that the environmental climate change concerns would be brought into the funding aspects of the archaeological work as renovating. For example, in our Sea Research Society has been now working for a little over half a century, and we are the only organization who is using deep divers to go to up to 180 meters below sea level. And we are also training people for the oil platforms and oil installations on the seabed. And we come constantly across this problem that there is not any kind of protection for cultural heritage from the Paleolithic period, which is sitting on the seafloor, and all the fishing industries, they can just freely wipe out everything that is out there. Nobody is funding us, and our main issue has been this thing that how do we monetize the Paleolithic artifacts such a way that we could retrieve them to the surface, because the cost of having seabed capping at 100 meters an hour is very, very expensive work, and we have to have also health and safety concerns are the one. And I think that this requires like a kind of government effort to put effort on understanding the climate change, because we feel that there's two problems which the oil industry and the geoscience community is not properly addressing. Because if you remember Deepwater Horizon accident, there was this problem with methane hydrate building up, and they couldn't close the oil well. And now if you think about this same substance in the Ice Age, there is a huge deposits of the methane glycerate on the Arctic Ocean seabed, and it is all made of pure carbon-12, and it all outcast. There are 28,000 craters of methane that are size of 1 square kilometer, and biggest one of them is 750 square kilometers with a depth of 350 meters. All of it is pure carbon-12 because it is 4.5 billion year old leftover carbon from the lithosphere that keep rising towards up from the mantle. And we are fearing that when the sea levels during the ice age scales that are then used for seabed sea level rise projections, and this is a very risky aspect. So this type of thing needs research, and I see that there's a potential for archaeological revival if we start studying the relationship of these carbon sources from the also from the Holocene thermal optimum, which equals as Arctic permafrost melting maximum. Again, another source releasing carbon-12 into atmosphere that was very rarefied in carbon dioxide at 180 parts per million. So I feel that these readings of the sea level rise that is being made is totally wrong, and it would also have an implication to archaeology. So we should get the governments to put more money to archaeology, and especially from the climate change aspects. So that's our. You can go to the Wikipedia and look our website. And if you are interested about marine archaeology and anything Paleolithic, paleo coastline studies, please get in touch with us. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much for those comments. Yeah, I think the issue of government funding is essential. And I think you've given us the most urgent kind of area of focus here. So thank you so much for that comment and question. I'm sorry, Alicia, I cut you off there.
No, I was just going to say our Wiener Archaeological Science Lab does work on some of these issues. And we partner with other European universities to address these issues, work with their researchers. But again, government funding is not exactly in there, but we are, we do a lot of different things. And again, we've got fellowships for these to help support that work as well, to help that sort of accessibility. Anyway, I just wanted to add that in there.
Yeah, definitely. So I think since we're on the topic here, maybe the answer to all of our ancient studies issues is to get governments to invest, right? To put their money kind of where the important things are, right? From our perspectives, right? To keep the humanities at the center. And so I don't know if there's any comments on how your organizations interact with government agencies. How much do you rely on government funding? Do you have to have a lobbyist in Congress to get things? How does it work, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great advantages actually of the American School in Athens is its independence from government funding for the most part. I mean, almost all the other foreign schools, not all of them, but most of them are in one way or another connected with their home governments. And this can be limiting, especially when then, governments themselves have to, constrain their own funding, So I think that independence is good. On the other hand, it does raise the issue of how do you sort of husband your resources over the long haul, and how do you then distribute those resources? And the school has been, reasonably lucky in that regard. I mean, partly it's age. If you just keep a certain amount of money around long enough, as the economy goes up and down, I'm told, eventually you end up ahead. But also, I mean, we do, like others have said, I mean, we have expanded over the years our development and our development office and professionalized it such that, an increasing percentage of our endowment or our operating costs are now dependent on annual giving. And that of course saves our endowment for the future. I mean, someday in the future, perhaps people will stop caring about archaeology, except for a very, very few people, right? And so we have to plan for that. We're sort of planning for worst case. And worst case, we can keep going for years and years, even if everybody says, no, we're not doing that anymore. I mean, I hope they don't, but I think you do have to sort of plan for that. The other side, though, one other aspect in terms of accessibility is people's time. And I think one of the things we've tried to do at the school is offer more and more scholarships that are not multiple months. If you can't be away from your family for 9 months, but you need just like 2 weeks to get something really good done, then that's great. And so I think, the more we can find people willing to support short-term fellowships, the better, because not everyone has 9 months or 12 months to carry out research.
Yeah. That kind of anticipated my next question here on, a lot of times when you look at funding opportunities, it's like, graduate student fellowship or, distinguished professor, funding opportunity, right? So what about independent scholars, members of the general public who want to kind of get their toes wet in the field? Or maybe they studied classics 20 years ago and they want to kind of make a soft entry back into the game. So, what types of things are out there for folks who, don't have, who have chosen not to make a career out of it, but still want to be engaged? How do we make it affordable for them? Or again, because the current model is kind of, you have to pay to play, right? You either have to buy the plane ticket to go somewhere, or you gotta, pay the publisher to get your article out, right? So what are some ideas that are out there that you all have seen work that are for the kind of introductory or reintroductory phase of someone's interests?
I mean, I can jump in here because we do accept very often submissions from people who have in the past studied a certain part of history and who want to re-engage with that topic. So it's something that very often occurs on our website, that we have somebody who, I don't know, now runs a construction company, but actually studied history and and is really into it. Or we have some bankers who are really into economic history, and they write about it. So that's something that we love doing. We love publishing people's work who may have taken a different career path and who then also bring other perspectives to that field that maybe a purely academic view would not have provided. So yeah, that's one route that obviously I can promote here, but we are not the only publication who does that. There are many publications on the internet that are happy to accept submissions from people who may not currently be in a academic position at university. Some of them are reviewed like ours, some of them are not. Some pay, some don't. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, great. And that kind of reminds me of a new program that SASA is launching this coming fall, which is a mentorship program. So the goal of this program is to connect kind of late stage high school students or early undergraduates and match them with someone who is who could be an academic, who's in the field, and kind of bring them into the fold, right? Like that's a way to kind of increase our numbers. But another thing we've been thinking a lot about is folks who have done ancient studies degrees and gone off to other wonderful things in nonprofits, in government, in the public sector, in private organizations, right? To show that these degrees are not just kind of dead ends. You don't have to be a professor if you study ancient Latin or Greek languages, right? You can do plenty of other things. So yeah, connecting people with successful people who've gone on to great things. So I just wanted to make a quick plug for our mentorship program. But Manolis, I think you were about to say something.
Yeah, no, it is great, John. I mean, in some ways, SASA also do that in a kind of a structural level where you have and collaborate with a range of volunteers at all ages and at all backgrounds. So this is a way of helping people who like ancient studies revitalize their interest, to do something that they like on their free time or in a kind of hobby, or some of them very good later return to a master or even a PhD. And we have been collaborating with some undergraduate students, for example, as per helping them see how it is the process of publishing, what are the intricacies behind the curtains, how easy or difficult it is to link between the different stakeholders of that process called published work, but also in our courses that we run. We offer the possibility to students sometimes partaking on the courses, sometimes outside the course, of all levels to have a presentation, something that is also kind of quantifiable. Okay, you can put it back on your CV and say, look, I have been teaching maybe a session in this workshop, in this module run by those professors somewhere around the world. And we are looking for more opportunities to develop this. But also what previously Jan was saying, I mean, we do publish research with no cost for the authors of the audience. And the ABCs, again, it's a thorn. And I can publicize some of the results of our marketing research. Colleagues, even those who had stable positions, not precarious 10 months or 5 months or 12 months contracts. In developed countries of the global north, wouldn't think that it is logical or rational to give anything beyond 600 euros and the equivalent of other coins. So you see the running scheme of academic publishing is already distorted. No one can and should be willing to pay this amount of money to see their work published, especially if there is this kind of gatekeeping where the copyright is being held by a publisher, where the price of the final book is unreasonable because it will get back to university libraries. Okay, you do a run of 250 books, and then you have a hardcover, and you have a price from the leading publishers of 200, 150 pounds. I mean, who, even with a 40% first author and relatives discount, who is gonna be giving this kind of money to get their book or their beloved relatives and so on book? So we are doing exactly that, and we're adding into the fold for this research not only peer review, but the ability to turn maybe non-native English to something closer to native English, although without agreeing to the format of native English as such, because English is the lingua franca, and we can discuss a lot about what that means for academic thought, for example, or production. But in any way, we have to be working in this language, and we have to retain some part of ourselves. And these are only some ways that we are very, very close to what the Encyclopedia and other people do. Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. So I did want to make sure that we have time for questions from both the folks on the Zoom call as well as people watching online. But I did have one final question, and I'm going a little off script here, so apologies. I have the kind of question to kind of, I don't know, maybe piece it together a little bit. But you know, if it's not the people who want to do ancient studies, right? If it's not the independent scholar out there, if it's not the university professor, if it's not me who wants to have to pay to engage with this content, right, with ancient studies, who is it? Who's responsible? Who should be the one at the forefront leading the charge of affordability in our fields, in our respective kind of worlds that we live in and work in, right? Should it be students? Should it be professors? Should the professoriate come down from the so-called ivory tower and lead the charge? Should it be the government putting the money where it's important? So I'm going to kind of just launch that piece of dynamite out into the audience here for y'all to take on. But so who should lead the charge?
I wanted to say something right in response to that. First of all, wonderful asking the most complicated possible question, the bottom line of affordability. Of course, it's true, but I think that we're basically moving more and more towards a crisis point, and then clearly humanities overall is moving towards this crisis point because many people, the public in general, is devaluing a humanities degree, and as the cost of higher education continues to rise, people feel more and more that they need to have a vision of a dollars and cents and bottom line endpoint. But as you said before, that's clearly untrue, that there's plenty of good careers to go into through the humanities. And so I think first of all, the answer is everybody has to be involved in this change, in this development. And it's also, I think academia in general reacts very slowly to change in some ways, and which is very unfortunate. But I think that's where SASA is really trying to push things a little bit and move things forward to show professors and academics and administrators that there is another way to adjust and adapt without just holding on to the way things are until the point where it's not tenable anymore. And the more people come together in groups like this to actually have productive discussions about new ways where this can happen, I think is really where things need to go, and then taking action based on that. But I'll stop talking so Manolis can answer something.
Saving the
I
day.
just would like to make a quick note that the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has here in UK mandated that all the graduates of the university must have their employment in the same field, and all those courses that they don't do the work on the same field must be shut down. And this is making the life really difficult for the humanities communities and anybody who is studying something for the sake of knowledge only. And I think that is something that we have to take in account. And that's why I feel that there's archaeology and humanities and history studies, ethnography, anthropology, they're all in difficulty on this, because how you monetize it such a way that you can show to the Prime Minister that this is giving students jobs in such a way that he can put some numbers on the table. That's why I'm telling this climate change is a very important bring in now, because I think the geoscience community is contaminated by oil industry interests who are making this radiocarbon a big mistake.
Great, thank you so much. Manolis has your hand up. Okay, go ahead. Oh, you're muted, my friend.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yes, thank you very much, and thank you, David, for this. It is indeed, I think, everyone, as with all causes, everyone should come together to find solutions. And sometimes the solutions are maybe outside our specific fields, in the way that people, for example, in publishing, being a member of OASPA, of the Open Access Publishing Association, think about books and what they are doing. And there are, we can call them startups if you wish, because everything is a startup, really. A lot of initiatives where people have thought of different ways about taking off the accessibility and affordability question, and doing something beyond the scope of contemporary market. And they work. Size is a matter of question, but there is a lot of initiatives there. And there are other initiatives in academic publishing, in education, as it is present and is very obvious in today's discussion. But then I think that maybe I am a bit biased, but I think I am, both me and Stefanos, people of a mixed background, in the way that we grew up in a country, Greece, that a lot of things in education are taken for granted because education is free, okay, and because of the traditional background where you know, the start of civilization, of Western civilizations in Greece and so on, studies like the humanities are embedded in their way of thinking. So despite the continuous from the creation of the modern Greek state till now, the continuous financial problems, we still produce a very wealthy, in many ways wealthy for the number and wealthy for maybe the market, a very wealthy number of graduates of humanities, and especially of Department of Classics, Archaeology and Ancient History. Okay. And we have so many departments, and some of them are very big, with 200 and 300 graduates, say, from the University of Athens. Maybe only in my year, that is 2002, where I graduated from a bachelor of undergraduates, okay, 200, 300, 250 people every year. And all those people know that they will not be working on that field, but they still do it. Okay, and some of them, of course, end up in a very distorted Greek education of a kind of para-education system with phrontisteria and private evening schools and so on. But in reality, many of them are not exactly employed, but they are there and they still choose it. So we have to ask a question, why? And this is not the case only in Greece. This is the case in Italy also. okay, where we have still the Lyceum Classicum. And of course, this is the case in the Netherlands, where we have to speak about other things, like the economy of one of the most strong, robust economic economies of the European Union. Okay, but there are these places where they still produce classicists who then go on working on ancient studies. And then we have the other image where the US or the UAE comes in, where people have to pay a lot of money and take up loans to do a study that may not return this money. And of course, we can have this kind of very big discussion again about the hole in the system with the loans and the percentage of repaying them and who gets to repay them and so on. But this model does not work. And in many ways, unfortunately, this discussion about the development and success and defense over the market normally does not involve states like Greece and Italy and their academics in how they see the world or their graduates see the world. And also our viewpoint, that is the Western viewpoint, if you wish, and I do not like the word, but we have somewhere to define it, has been tainting other viewpoints. So in discussion with colleagues from Africa or South America, they tend to see the market in market terms. So they find the same, for me, that is wrong ways of dealing with the problem, leading, although they are in a different level, leading on the same problems that we maybe in Europe and the US have already faced, and we haven't been winning over. And they're repeating the same mistakes, and it's a vicious circle. And maybe we have to think about other countries, maybe in the East, like Japan has a very healthy classics, for example, community, very well involved in Japan, not outside, okay? China, that Institutes of Humanities are coming out the last 3 years, like if I excuse of the expression, like mushrooms after rain, okay, everywhere. And it has a lot to do, I said, with politics and agenda, but there are things that we can take from this discussion. Thailand, who may not have a classics education, but they are very strong in archaeology, especially prehistoric, okay? So we have to think about the ways that those countries deal with problems, some of which are in the capitalist circle, some of which are not exactly, and open up the discussion to evolve those